What's going on, everyone? Welcome to yet another episode of the Schoch Factor Podcast. And this week, we are joined by one of the hardest working men in college baseball, in my opinion, a guy who has an incredible college baseball journey, and that is UNC Greensboro's two-way guy, Caleb Cozart, who recently set the single season career home run record at single season record at UNCG for home runs in a season with his 18th bomb of the season coming against High Point University about 2 weeks ago. He's now at 20 bombs, the last I've checked, and at the time of this interview. So he has been really impressive. You may know his brother, Jacob Cozart, the catcher at NC State. And if you're a true crazy college baseball or just baseball fanatic, then you might have heard of his younger brother, Sam Cozart, who I believe is a junior in high school, throwing like 93 miles an hour. He's 6'10", just an absolute behemoth of a human being. But the Cozart family has baseball just running through their genes. His dad was the coach at High Point for most of Caleb, Sam, and Jacob's lives. So it's really cool to see that college baseball is really stuck with this family. But getting into it and specifically talking more about Caleb has, I would allege, the craziest story in college baseball. You know, you hear so many times about guys who, they get to college and they become a star. That's cool. You get to college and, they have a rocky path, but then they eventually find their way out. That's really cool too. But Caleb, it's like something in my 6 years of playing college baseball and my 3 years of covering it since. It's a story I haven't heard anything as insane as. And the dude just has such an incredible outlook on life. Like it's insane. So he started his career at UNC Chapel Hill. There he was a pitcher, and 12 pitches into his season, or into the fall, right when he got to campus, his whole elbow just completely went out, which we'll get into. Following that, he was like, look, I want to get back into two-weighing after he got healthy again. And he was pitching, and he got back to pitching. All good there. But he was like, look, I want to get back to hitting. And so we have a transfer portal success story where he was able to transfer to UNC Greensboro. And while he's there, just absolutely show out at the plate. His first year there, he only hit about 6 or 7 home runs, I want to say, while batting in the 200s. But this season, he has just been on a tear. He has 20 home runs. He's hitting well above 300. And it's just really cool to see a guy go into the portal and have this much success, doing exactly what he wanted to do. And after you hear Caleb's story, you'll understand why this kid in particular might deserve it just a little bit more. So we'll have all that and more coming up. Caleb is an awesome dude. You're going to want to hear this interview. We're going to take a short break to hear from some of our sponsors, and then we'll be back with Caleb.
Have you heard of the 2025 Soldier Tank BB Core Baseball Bat by Soldier Sports? This isn't just any bat, it's lighter and hotter than any of its predecessors. This is thanks to its infused alloy technology that allows an ultra big, ultra hot sweet spot. Crafted from over 2.5 years of research and development, the Soldier Tank is the perfect blend of speed and power. Designed for both power and contact hitters, it features a formula for success. Speed times mass times impact equals extreme power. I've seen it swung. Even the mishits have juice with the Soldier Tank. The bat is priced at an incredible $311, which is well worth it, in my opinion, to be swinging the top scoring BB Core bat ever. They're selling out fast though, so head over to soldiersports.us to secure yours today.
Caleb, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Living the dream, another day in paradise.
Yeah, now I say hardest working man in baseball, and people might think, oh, well, he two ways, he pitches, he hits. That's cool. Like, that's something. But you're also working an actual job while you're playing baseball, which in the world of NIL, that's kind of unheard of. Like, or you don't hear about it as much. It's very common. I know about it as someone who is very involved in the baseball world, but people hear about like, oh, this kid got a truck and $100,000 to post an Instagram post. But you're out here, you're working, you're paying your bills. So what is your work life like before we get into the business of baseball?
Well, I got to pay my living essentials and everything first off. We don't have a huge NIL fund here at UNCG, which is totally okay. But I enjoy going to work. I go to work in the mornings, usually from 8 until I got to go to practice. It helps me build connections and network, but also pay the living essentials that I need to. So I'll go there. I'll do anything from sales to marketing, project management, project development, and everything. And it's kind of the whole flip side of what my two brothers are going through right now. Jacob's got his hefty NIL deals, and then Sam's going to be paid as well wherever he decides to go. So it's a little bit of a flip side to the whole thing, but I enjoy it.
Yeah, and you get a very unique experience of it too, as being that older brother who's going through it at the time where it's like, okay, at first, when you first got into college baseball, NIL wasn't really a thing. So you got to see it fully come full circle, really, which for you, I feel like that's got to be a really interesting position to be in.
It is. It's cool, honestly, because when the whole thing NIL just first started, I had in my old school just a bagel company. I would go to this bagel shop called Brugger's, and I would go there. They gave me a free bagel every morning I go there, so I couldn't complain about that. And then I think my sophomore or junior year, I had to write a paper on it, how I believe it's either good, bad, or in the middle. And you can kind of see how people are finding the gray areas and trying to control those and manage them now. Whereas you see how athletes like my brother's being compensated for the time that he's sacrificing to the university. I mean, he goes there every single day, kind of the same thing that I do here, and give his time and energy to make the university's name known and their sports teams as well.
Absolutely. And, I really like that stance on it. It's that trade off of like, hey, look, I will make you guys more popular. You just got to compensate, which makes total sense. But getting right into it, when you first started off, first of all, love the free bagel. That is a phenomenal NIL thing. That is something I would take advantage of any day of the week because breakfast food really is the best. What kind of bagel were you going with?
Oh, I get a blueberry bagel with bacon, egg, and cheese on it.
Oh, that is a juxtaposition for the mouth and the taste buds that I cannot paint myself. I feel like I need to go and get one of those myself just to experience it. So after this, I will be trying out a blueberry bagel with all those ingredients because that sounds really good, honestly. But
it's simple but great.
You don't need to overcomplicate it, really, which I think that's what it is. It's the people think too much. It's kind of like Hawaiian pizza, where it's like, okay, do we put pineapple on pizza? It's sweet, it's savory. Pineapple, I realized this recently, and sorry, Caleb, we will get to baseball, I promise. But pineapple, phenomenal fruit. Highly recommend it. Can't recommend it enough. I always was a hey, I go to McDonald's type of guy. I started eating pineapple, changed my life.
Oh, I love pineapple as well, and watermelon.
Watermelon, yes, also great. I watched a video where a guy who was in better shape than I told me you shouldn't eat sugar unless it has fiber attached to it, like in fruit. And that really stuck with me. I was like, okay, maybe. I don't really know. But watermelon's a great fruit to get it on.
I like it. I'm with it.
But enough with the fruit talk. So starting off, you have been in college for quite some time. And in college, you have, you've seen some stuff, which we will get into. You have one of the craziest college stories I have ever heard. And I've heard plenty of them. But first of all, it all started at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. So what was your recruiting process like to get to UNC?
So early on, I guess you could say I started getting recruited when I was in 8th grade. And at that point, my dad was coaching college baseball at High Point. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people were kind of hesitant to talk to me because they didn't know if I was going to go play for my dad or not. I had people talk to my travel ball coach, and then they would ask my dad, they're like, hey, is it okay if we talk to your son? So my dad and I both talked about it a lot, and we were okay with me expanding my options. And so early on, I started getting some recruiting options, mainly for pitching. And then freshman, sophomore, and junior year was when I really started to hit well. And that was when I started narrowing my options down between Carolina and NC State. And I toured High Point just to go do it for my dad. And I fell in love with Coach Fox and his program that he had there. And it was the place for me at the time that I felt fit, but I didn't know what would unfold after that.
Absolutely. And so throughout your high school recruiting process, of course, it's always ongoing. Your recruiting process started at birth with the High Point coach, just on your tail, always watching, making sure hey, this kid's on the right path. So I'm sure that must have been an interesting conversation with your dad about like, hey, look, you got a great program, Dad, but we can look elsewhere. So I appreciate you and tip my cap to you for that process. But what were you like as a player in high school?
I was a toolsy guy, I guess you could say. I always had a lot of power. I had a good arm. I was okay in the field. I was a bigger boy. I mean, I was 6'4", 6'5", 255 pounds in high school. And so my velo never really made a solid jump on the mound. I was, I think, 86 my eighth grade year. And then freshman year, I was 87. And then it just slowly ticked up a mile an hour from there. But hitting was always my love. I mean, I can remember times in trial ball that I hit way back, like when I was 13, though. I hit the home run cycle on a weekend. And then there were some that I would just be the RBI machine. But I guess the power was the main thing I always saw be consistent for me at a young age with hitting.
Yeah, so it was like, hey, look, I am a big boy. People are going to be like, oh, that kid's way older than us because he's hitting home runs and he's bigger than us. But hey, look, you know what? We're bigger. We might as well take advantage of it. I will say the most fun I ever had playing baseball was that, like, right after my growth spurt when I was little. I think it was like I turned 12. I grew like 8 inches. And that's when I started being able to hit home runs. And don't get me wrong, my shins hurt and I did not sleep for like a whole year. But boy, were those like 6 rec league home runs worth it.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, the shin splints, the knee pain, the back pain from growing, it was all there.
Yeah, like people will say growing pains is like a metaphor of, oh, you got to get through stuff. It's like, no, actual growing pains, like that's way worse than like a bump in the road of my progress in life. Like it hurts. It's taking sleep away. But one of your quote unquote growing pains going through college was 12 pitches into the fall at UNC. You'd just gotten to campus, you throw 12 pitches, your whole rig just goes out. Your elbow is it's blown out. So what was that like? Because I know for me, it's got to be tough, especially like when you're first coming into a school. For me, I was always, okay, I do not fit in until I can get on the mound and go throw baseballs. Because like conditioning wise, exercise wise, I'm not a fitting guy, but on the mound, I know what I'm doing. So what was that experience like for you?
It was the hardest thing I've ever had to go through. I mean, growing up, I was baseball, baseball, baseball. I did nothing else but play baseball. And I had trained my body for so long to be such a fine-tuned machine on the mound that in my 12th pitch, my freshman fall, I blow out. It wasn't just blow. I mean, I heard it pop. UCL separated. I broke 2 bones in my arm at the same time. And you're out for a year. And so I had to find myself a new identity outside of baseball because I couldn't throw, I couldn't lift, I couldn't do anything that I'd done for 19 years of my life. And so during that point, it was the hardest mental struggle that I've had to go through to realize that I'm not just a baseball player. There's so much more to life than that.
Absolutely. And so you touched on a ton of phenomenal points. And I did downplay what happened with the arm. I didn't want to make you relive through it, but I appreciate you giving us the details and just saying, hey, you know what? It happened. And now I'm here, which I think that is a true sign of like, hey, look, we've gotten through that. That is a minor hump in the road. Now looking back on it, obviously it's not, but the way you have grown from it, what would you say your identity shifted to? Because for a lot of college baseball players, that is the case where it's like, look, all I know is baseball. Like, I don't know how to be a normal student, regular person on campus. Like, that's not my life.
Yeah, I guess every day before I blew my elbow out, I woke up and I was like, all right, let's go to the baseball field. How can I get better as a player? That was what I thought. And then I realized that there's so much more outside of it. The people that I encounter every single day. I'm a Christian, so I realized the platform that I have to change other people's lives and make my corner of the world better. And so I was more driven towards that. My academics, of course, first off, changing the lives of people around me. And then just realizing that I'm not just a baseball player. Like I'm a great friend. I'm a brother to my 2 younger brothers. I'm a son to my parents. And then there's so many other people that I encounter that look up to me as a college athlete that they're like, I want to know what this kid is like. How does he live? How does he think? What does he believe?
Yeah, I'm with you. And let me tell you, I want to know more about all that because, again, you have an incredible story, and it seems like you are more well adjusted as a normal human being than I think I could ever be. Which the game of baseball, it'll make you crazy because you spend 4 years going to college. Hey, say a fun fact about yourself. Oh, I'm a baseball player. Now let's sit down and shut up and let's hope this hour goes by fast. But people don't think about that. They don't think about like, how do I actually define myself? And it seems like you've really gotten a good grip on that.
Yeah, I guess you could say what define me is, I try to sum this up in as few words as possible. I am a Christian son and brother who plays baseball.
I love that. And the who plays it, like, it's just something I do. It is not entirely me. It's part of me. And like, people in the professional world, when you're a grown up or whatever I am, people ask you, oh, what do you do for a living? And people will say, I'm a blank. And it's like, it's stuff we do, it's
Yeah.
like, I get to cover college baseball. Like, I'm very grateful for that. But you get back on track, you have this injury and you're like at this low point where you're struggling to find yourself, and you're like, okay, well, we've talked about it. You still got to work, you still got to make money, still find a way. And you're at a low point and you're like, well, this can't get any worse. Oh, here's a study. I can get $800 to have these people so you sign up for a concussion study, and I got questions about this. What was the study initially for?
So what they do is they always take younger guys like freshmen in college, and they take your blood, they do an MRI from your brain all the way down your spinal cord, and they do balance testing, and they take all your numbers from that and compare it to someone who has a concussion to grade their concussion.
Okay, so you were like, look, pay me $800. I'll be a baseline, no problem. You go in, what could go wrong? And they do the MRI, and that is where we find out what happened with the MRI. What was that?
So from the MRI, I found out I had a brain tumor. It was, I guess you could say, a blessing in disguise that they found it, because I had no idea that I had that there. It was after the first study, literally the day after I got my results back. And I'm sitting in our dugout for one of our games, and Terry Joe, the trainer, comes up to me and goes, "Hey, Caleb, come here. I need to talk to you." And she goes, "They found something in your MRI. We need to go back and get it looked on. I'm going to call your parents, and then we're going to go back tomorrow morning and get it looked at." So from there, we went and got more testing done. This was actually a 3-hour MRI to figure out what it was. And it's what they call a hemangioblastoma.
Glioblastoma. Okay, that sounds advanced. That sounds like a doctor term. I gotta imagine with your trainer coming over to you to talk to you about it, and like they come over with like this bad news look. I'm assuming that, hey, we got to go talk about this. Like, was your thought like, look, I know my arm's messed up. Like, we're good. So was this even? It was just completely out of left field. Like, no thought about it at all. Had you ever like experienced headaches or anything like that?
No, like you said, completely out of left field, because I'm 3 months post surgery, just beginning to do my arm care and exercises again. And then I get hit with this curveball, and I'm like, really? Can this freshman year go any worse for me? And the area that it was located, it's on the upper part of my brainstem, like base of my brain. And they said it's the nervous system and coordination area. So they did a bunch of like testing. They would tap my arm to make sure that I could feel it and all that stuff. And then did the balance testing. And over time, like, I didn't feel anything at the moment, but they kept monitoring me every 6 months, like more MRIs and balance testing and stuff. And I played with it in for a year and a half. First off, just pitched with it in. And I said that I owed it to myself to get back from my elbow injury, then I'll deal with this. But by the time that regionals ended back in 2021, I had noticed that there was a steep decline. And then when surgery happened and afterwards, I actually felt things with my feet, with my arms and everything before that I didn't feel during that time. I was like, okay, so there actually was a significant fall in my coordination and nervous system.
Yeah. And that's incredible that, playing any sport with this going on is insane, but playing a sport like baseball, where this is affecting your balance and coordination, the two things that you need the most of to execute on a baseball field and to still have relative success while you're doing it, is absolutely insane. So you go through it, you pitch with it for a year and a half. And that was all just, look, I need to get my arm right before we can deal with this. And so when you get the surgery, or when you had the surgery to get it taken out, what was the recovery process like that for you?
So they didn't give me a recovery process, like no movements or stretching or anything like that. They just told me whatever feels fine with you, you can do that, because regionals finished and I went and had surgery literally a week later. And it was, I think, an 8-hour surgery. But the first thing I did when I woke up from surgery, was I felt the scar first off to see if it was a cool one. And then I walked around just to see how it felt. And I think I left the hospital the next day. And then in a week and a half, I was squatting and working out again. And then 4 weeks after, I was hitting and throwing like normal.
A week and a half. You're kidding me. A week and a half to doing my, like, one of my least favorite exercises in the world. You are a way better man than I. We already knew that, but this confirms that even more. That's just insane.
Yeah, I was going stir crazy, to say the least. Like I was sitting at home and I couldn't do anything. I was like, I'm gonna go see how it feels. I just said screw it at that point. Started out light and movements, and my neck, I couldn't like fully turn all the way or bend my neck all the way down, but it was enough that I could do some workouts with.
A wet sock will stop me from having a good workout, and you get brain surgery and that's your pre-workout. That that's so crazy, dude. But you said you felt the scar. Did you end up with a cool one? Was it a cool one? Like, when you
Yeah.
say a cool scar, what were you looking for?
Well, I was looking first off for a nice long one. I didn't want those little arthroscopic holes. Did they get
Mm-hmm.
those? Because I mean, you got the TJ scar that's cool. I can turn around. I don't know if you can see it, but you can see on the back
Okay.
how it
Oh
goes
yeah.
straight down.
No, I like that. In
Yeah.
terms of brain surgery scars, that's I guess a good one. I don't know how to compliment you without sounding weird about that, but it
No.
is a good one.
Yeah. I mean, I go get a haircut nowadays, and everyone, the barber, he'll be going around there, and he was like, "Ooh, what happened there?" I'm just like, I had a surgery
Had
on it.
you could hit him with had to fire the last guy, so be careful around that spot.
Yeah. My coaches are
But
like, "You get in a bar fight or something?" And I'm like, "No, something cooler."
like way worse, way worse. But
Yeah.
so now moving along, you get back, you're healthy, you're feeling well, you're moving well again. You're like, okay, everything's calmed down. I want to hit again. Like I need to get back into a lineup. How am I going to do that? Could I do it here? Well, that's the easy path. That would be, I wouldn't have to worry about transferring credits. I wouldn't have to worry about making sure all my classes transferred. That's way too easy for me. We're gonna go upstream. We're gonna choose the transfer process to do this. So, how did you end up deciding to transfer, and then how did you end up selecting UNCG?
So I decided to enter the portal. Like after all the coaching changes happened in Carolina, I realized that it wasn't the place for me or where I wanted to be anymore. And I decided to hit the portal. During summer ball, I was still pitching, obviously, but I started to swing it again. And that's just the one thing that's never left me. And then throughout the whole process, it's chaotic, as you have heard for probably other guys before. You can't go anywhere without your phone being by your side in case you miss a call. And then when I narrowed it down, Billy Godwin, who was the coach here, he's retired now, but he saw me hit in high school and he gave me the chance to do so. And then I also give credit to Coach Ellis, who's our interim right now. He's really helped me with my swing as well. He's just as great at hitting coach as I've ever played for in my life. And it just fell fluidly together once I got more reps, got more comfortable, and then realized that this is the place that I want to hit for my last 2 years of college.
Definitely. And well, I'm sure they are happy with that choice on their end and on your end. But before getting into, what you have done this week and weekend, before we talk about smashing the records, I got to know, what's your favorite thing other than hitting about UNC Greensboro?
Ooh, that's a good one. Well, I mean, it's a given. My teammates, of course.
Mhm.
But I would say being close to home, I guess. I'm only 30 minutes from home. So I get to see my parents and my youngest brother whenever I want to. So just the conveniency of being close.
That works out pretty well. So going into college, you're like, okay, I'm going to go to UNC. They want me to be a pitcher. We'll go and do that. Obviously, the plan, whatever it looks like on paper, it looks like on paper. Did you ever think becoming the single season home run leader at UNC Greensboro was going to happen? Like, if you could say going into yourself, like, or going into it, talking to your high school self, like, hey, by the way, it's me, Caleb, from the future. You're going to be the most fearsome power hitter in UNC Greensboro school history.
No, being honest, no, I wouldn't believe it. My dad always believed that I should be a college hitter. And when I turned PO, I just kind of disregarded it until the last year. But I guess now I can see that I always had it because I always had gifted power. I just had to control it, which is what I started doing this past winter break with my brother Jacob and my dad. We just fine tuned and sharpened all my hitting tools to make contact consistently. And then I broke the record, and I get a text from my brother Jacob and my dad saying, "I told you would do it." I was like, I know, y'all told me.
It's like, look, we've been saying, we have been trying to tell you you're good at baseball. Like, it's part of it. And to say whatever you did over winter has worked, that's an understatement. You're hitting 354 on the season with 20 bombs, which is absolutely insane. And not only did you set the single season record, but you set it at High Point, if my memory is serving me correctly. So what was that like for you?
Yeah, it was against my dad's former team, and Coach Ellis said it best. He said it was poetic because the first two at bats, I think I got walked and then something else, and then I hit it backside, which is where my power has always been, and it couldn't have been any sweeter. My entire family, literally, my mom, dad, youngest brother, my mom's parents, and my dad's parents were at the game, and they videoed it. And then it was even more laughable afterwards. They hit me with the first pitch of the next at bat.
Fair.
And so I was like, all right, well, that sucks. I wanted to do something about it, but we were winning like 12-0 at this point. So I just let the insult to injury hit him. But it was poetic, yes.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's such a cool way to do it. And honestly, when I posted about you, every response was like, oh, his dad, Craig, he's the man. His dad coached me in this way. His dad coached me when I was at UCF, like all these different things. And then if that wasn't the response was, I wish there was the battery mates of Jacob and Caleb at NC State or whatever school, like people just from North Carolina saying, I wish we got to see these two playing with each other at the college level. You've mentioned that you have another brother, Sam, who I'm not familiar with his game yet. What is his story?
Sam is in a category of his own. That kid, he's been a beast ever since he was little. He's now 6'10", 245 pounds, and he's a pitcher. And I mean, the youngest story that I'll tell about Sam is when he was 2 years old and him and Jacob were wrestling, Sam started choking out Jacob. And I was like, goodness gracious. And then the first time that I saw Sam pitch live was when he was 12, and he popped an 87 at 12 years old. And my reaction was the same. I was like, oh, all right, so Sam's a real deal. And then we kind of kept him sheltered. And then you probably remember when Perfect Game posted for the first time about him down in Jupiter as a seventh grader, popping 87 or 88. Then he blew up, and it's skyrocketed ever since. I can't describe what kind of pitcher or player he is other than just a freak.
Yeah. So baseball is running in the Cozart family blood. Like, is there anyone in your family you can think of that doesn't play baseball, or anyone in your extended family where it's like, oh yeah, no, that's just John, he really likes watching basketball games, doesn't like playing?
No, I mean, literally the Cozart genes, there's two sides. There's the mom side that's my cut right, and then my dad's side, which is the Cozart. The Cozarts, they were all Navy. Me and my dad were the first two not to go into service. And then my mom's side, her dad played football at Florida. Her mom was a cheerleader at Florida. She was in the Olympics. Her sister ran track at Wisconsin. So it goes all the way down as far as I can know.
Well, hey, that'll definitely play. Now, before I let you go, I gotta know, you mentioned you're in a master's program right now. For the people listening at home, what are we studying? What's the master's we're getting?
It's a master's in international business with a concentration in project management and cybersecurity.
Okay, now since we are talking to student athletes here, and we start with student, and we've talked a lot about athlete, I'm not going to do 30 minutes about school. I'll never do that. I refuse. But what has been your favorite class you've taken in college?
Oh, wow. Shoot, that's a good question. My favorite class, it would probably be, well, I could say the funny part and be my yoga class that I took back at Chapel Hill, or the international strategy class I took this semester.
Okay, international strategy, a little bit of stretching for the brain. Yoga, obviously stretching for the body. Was there anything from yoga that really stuck with you, or is there flexibility that is stuck?
Well, I could say that my older mates have videos of me learning the stretches in the first week, and then the tree pose. I think that's what it's called. You're like on one leg, and you have your heel or leg up against it, and you're stretching your hips and upper body and everything.
That sounds like it feels phenomenal. I will be looking up the tree pose after this. But Caleb, your college baseball story is so amazing. It has been an absolute pleasure to get to watch you hit home runs this season and last season for that matter. I know it wasn't as many, but those home runs still mattered. You were still that was your freshman year of hitting, you were figuring out how to do it. But Caleb, thank you so much for making college baseball router, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk to us here on the Schoch Factor podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it and the chance.
Of course.
Baseball barbecue started when a broken grill fork and a cracked bat came together to make the perfect grill tool. Now, Baseball Barbecue makes patented bat handle barbecue tools and cutting boards that are licensed for the best teams in college baseball. Fun and functional, Baseball Barbecue products are perfect for casual fans and serious grillers alike, and a great way to out tailgate your rivals. Visit baseballbarbecue.com/D1Baseball to find the perfect grilling gift for the college baseball fan in your life.
I mean, wow, you talk about a crazy story. This dude, again, he gets to college, elbow goes out. He's like, what could go worse? He's like, hey, look, an easy way to make $800, be a baseline for a concussion study. We'll do that. Goes, gets the test done, has the trainer pull him aside and say, hey, look, they found something pretty, like you can't be a baseline. I will say I do regret, and I will DM him and ask and get the actual answer. I want to make sure he did in fact get that $800, because I feel like that might have gotten jumbled along with some of the other stuff going on around the time of the concussion study. I mean, just to find out you have a tumor in your brain that you didn't even know about. And for me, I don't know much about the brain. I'll be the first person to tell you I'm not a brain scientist, but I have taken some psychology classes, and he was talking about how it was on his brain stem, which the brain stem is closely connected, I believe, to the cerebellum, which involves a lot of balance. It's not the front of the brain, which is where the Abdullah oblongata is. That's why alligators are angry, not because they can't brush their teeth, but that's the only other part of the brain that I really know, and that's all from the water boy. But either way, this is around his cerebellum and the brainstem area, which largely affects coordination. And if you've ever tried to hit a baseball, you might know that it does involve a little bit of hand-eye coordination. You might need to know where your body's going at the time. And so the fact that he could have any amount of success, like the fact that he could even throw a strike, is mind-boggling, because pitching is so much balance. There's so much. Think about if someone was shooting an arrow, they were an archer, and they had bad balance. There's no way an archer can nail a target with bad balance. But Caleb was doing it, which is insanely impressive. And even more so impressive, the dude's two-weighing, which is pretty much all you can do baseball-wise. Like you can't sign up for more. I mean, I guess he could be a student manager too, maybe 3. I don't know. But on top of that, he's been working an 8 to 12 job all season long just to pay rent and pay bills. And in the world of NIL, I feel like that often gets overlooked. But this kid is just so impressive. Like, to have the college baseball journey he's had, to deal with what he's dealt with and moved through, and not only just deal with it, but to thrive through it, is absolutely insane. To have an outstanding perspective on life afterwards is also really cool. And it makes me want to be a better person. I hope if you're listening and you heard Caleb talk, you want to be a better person too, because that's exactly who this guy is. He's one of those people who you meet him, you talk to him, you can watch him play baseball and go, oh, wow, that's impressive. That's really cool. But when you get to actually talk to him, that's when he gets more impressive. And that's honestly what college baseball is all about. I know Jake and Jordan don't like me saying that too often, but that's really what it's all about. Caleb Cozart and the whole Cozart family are just absolutely awesome people. Got to give a shout out to Caleb's mom, Michelle, for alerting me of this story because it wasn't talked about that much and I couldn't really find much about it. And so getting to learn about it has been absolutely awesome. And just again, because of Caleb Cozart, I myself want to be better. And fun fact, this might be the last year that we have, Caleb and Jacob in college baseball because of the draft and other things like that. But soon, if you're a college baseball fan, their brother Sam will be joining the college baseball party if the draft doesn't go his way. I mean, it's hard for me to imagine it won't because he throws really hard and he's really impressive himself. But either way, we could get another Cozart in college baseball. So they aren't done yet. And if you're like, hey, wait, what's this Sam guy look like? I looked Sam up after talking with Caleb because I had heard about him, but did not know a ton just yet. And I went to his Instagram and found a video of him deadlifting. And instead of holding the bar of the deadlift, he's got one hand, like he's straddling the weights and holding them with a pinch grip while deadlifting. Like it's not like a max out, but it is a heavy deadlift. It's more than I was deadlifting when I was in high school. It's insane stuff. I'll make sure to include a video somehow in this podcast, or I'll link a video in the podcast notes. It's absolutely insane stuff. You might want to check it out. But thank you so much to Caleb and the whole Cozart family for just being awesome people and making college baseball better. And thank you guys for listening to the Schoch Factor podcast. It's been a fun one. This one was, again, probably the craziest we've ever had. Thank you to our sponsors, Soldier Sports and Baseball Barbecue, for making this all possible. And thank you for D1 Baseball for allowing me to have a podcast on the D1 Baseball Podcast Network under the Sirius XM umbrella of Sports Podcast Network. Make sure that you check it out and give us a review if you like it. If you didn't like it, DM me and just let me know what I can do better. That would be great. But I appreciate you, and we'll hear from you next week on the Schoch Factor podcast. Have a great weekend.